Welcome to Tell Me Your Story, New Paradigms for a New World. I'm Richard Dugan, your host, and I thank you so much for joining us here on the program. We have an interesting program for you today. I'll give you all the preliminaries that I normally give at the front end, but we want to dive right into our conversation with a very special guest here on Tell Me Your Story. His name is Ryan Williams with InsightHealthApps.com. We're going to talk about an application that you can download and access called Genius Insight, having to do with a lot of cool things in relation to a gentleman who goes back to the 1930s, where in a study that was done on stage 4 cancer patients who the medical community had already given up on and were basically sent home to die peacefully. Well, after about 90 days, 86.5% of the patients were cancer-free, and the other 13.5% were cancer-free after a further 30 days. Well, we're talking about a gentleman who goes back to that era, if you will, that year. It was actually the year before my father was born. His name was Dr. Royal Raymond Rife, and he was the architect behind this phenomenal success. And science has known for quite some time that all of these things vibrate at their own personal frequency. Well, we're going to get into that, and we're going to talk about Royal Raymond Rife and our guest who is joining us here all the way from South Africa, Ryan Williams. Thanks so much for taking time out from your busy, what is it, evening or morning there as we're conversing here?
Thank you so much. It's actually evening over here. Good to be here. Just actually got out from dinner, so certainly glad to be here. And yes, Royal Rife, a lot to talk about, a lot of interesting stories for sure.
Well, I was privileged, and I shared this with you. There is a company that was, I guess, had the rights to his story or what have you. At least from this standpoint, they were creating a DVD, a video of his life and so forth. And I was privileged to narrate that DVD. I might even incorporate into this program a little bit, a short piece of that narration later. But it was fascinating to learn as I read and narrated that DVD, read the narration about his early years, the process that he went through, and then, of course, the later years, as was mentioned, about how Big Pharma got involved, and just almost along the same lines as Tesla. People got involved and said, no, 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 because there's more money in keeping people sick and diseased or diseased, as we like to say, than it is to cure them. And I was flabbergasted, but I was quite honored to be able to voice that. Let's talk a little bit about the history of Royal Raymond Rife from your understanding, your perspective, and so forth, and why he became such a focal point for you in what you have created.
Thank you so much. I think, first and foremost, it's important to kind of look at, Royal Rife. He obviously, a lot of his research came out around, the 1930s, 1940s. He ended up dying around 1970s. And, he was sort of one of the pioneers in this industry where, within this industry, we kind of have been able to identify that each virus, each pathogen has a specific resonant frequency. And in many ways, that actually goes back to Dr. Royal Rife's work. However, if you take Dr. Rife's work and you go back, even 50 or 100 or even 200 years beforehand, there's been a lot of work around the concept of, resonant frequencies, bioresonant frequencies. If you look at, East Indian medicine, everyone, they talk about energy, they talk about chakras, they talk about electroacupuncture, acupuncture fields, chi, all of that is, it kind of implies that there's energy within the body. So I think it's important to look at the typical allopathic medical model that we have. And then if we look at the typical Royal Rife work or the vibrational work that, has been going on for hundreds and hundreds of years. So, as an example, the allopathic medical model, they look at the body as, kind of chemistry. 2 parts sodium, 1 part chloride, or whatever it is. When we deal with energy medicine, when we deal with, the work that Dr. Rife did, he was dealing with frequencies. And, at a fundamental level, if you look at your body, even, within a kind of cellular structure, your body has an electrical vibration. We always kind of vibrating different electrical impulses. So, let's kind of go back to, Dr. Rife, wonderful scientist. Sad news is, in around 1970s, he ended up dying a broken alcoholic scientist. Absolutely nothing to his name. His laboratory was burnt down. I'm not going to tell you why it was burnt down, but I figured you can probably put the pieces together. But in the 1930s and 1940s, he had a very high-powered microscope. And what he started doing is actually studying specific viruses and specific pathogens. And as he was studying them, he would basically have a kind of radio amplifier that he would adjust certain frequencies. And while he was looking at these pathogens under a high-powered microscope, as he began to adjust the frequency output of this frequency generator, these specific pathogens or viruses or cancerous cells would begin to sort of like resonate, and he was able to identify what's known as a mortal oscillatory rate, which basically means that a specific cancer, he could turn a radio frequency dial and get a specific frequency that cancer frequency would begin to vibrate at its own specific resonance and actually essentially kind of shatter. And in doing that, he was able to identify a whole series of different viruses and pathogens that had specific frequencies. And by applying those specific frequencies for a specific duration, obviously that's where you can begin to get results. And, you're looking at Dr. Rife, I think it's around the 1940s, if I'm not mistaken. He did a clinical trial, like you alluded to. These people were basically stage 4 terminal cancer patients. They were told to go home, essentially get their affairs in order. They were done. They were like terminal 4. And, Dr. Rife got involved literally as a kind of research project, certainly not to prove anything. And within 6 weeks, I believe he was able to get an 80% success rate. And then within another 3 or 4 weeks, he was able to get a even higher percent success rate. So you look at this, I mean, this goes back into the 1950s, right? Where we are dealing with frequencies. And if you look at, the way technology has progressed now, just in terms of science and computerized technology and frequencies and sound generations and everything else, it's kind of curious how, Dr. Rife's work, it's still being researched, it's still being promoted. But, if you want to compare it to the allopathic medical model, I find it kind of interesting to see, in terms of what's happening with the big pharma versus, a gentleman that cured cancer, 40, 50 years ago.
Mm. Well, I know that there are other methods that people are trying to devise to reverse certain conditions. One of them in particular, and I would love to have your insight from your perspective on this, knowing what you know about, of course, the work that Rife and others have done, CRISPR, and how they are manipulating, I'll put it that way, the DNA to eliminate certain conditions. In specific, they have managed to isolate and remove those elements. I believe it is from the DNA, it may be from the chromosomes, either way, so that they can eliminate sickle cell anemia. To a case in point, there was a 60 Minutes piece done on this. My first thought is, okay, you have removed, and now there's a sort of a vacuum when you have removed this particular element. So what are the unintended consequences? You've removed this, something else is going to fill that vacuum, because that's the way nature works. That's the way traffic works too. If you're on the freeway and you leave too big a gap in front of you or behind you, somebody else is going to fill that hole. What are your thoughts in regards to some of these other more laboratory oriented, if you will, methods for curing what ails us, the diseases that have us, by going in and starting to play. Um, uh, I don't know what the right term here is, molecular roulette of sorts.
I think first and foremost, I'm certainly not an expert within that field, and I certainly would not want to kind of, sort of be misquoted. But, I think at the end of the day, if you look at technology, if you look at health, if you look at the research that's being done, as far as I'm concerned, if we are able to achieve a result, if it's through big pharma, if it's through, major cancer breakthroughs that they do, or whatever it is, that's great. But I think part of the challenge that I've got, having been involved in a bioresonance industry for the last, 20 or 25 years, you see the amount of research and the amount of effort that goes into the work that we are doing versus the sort of allopathic medical model. And you see the great innovations that are theoretically done, within that kind of model. And then you look at the technology that I'm involved with, you look at different types of technology where it really is, it's like a fundamental belief system. And it's looking at the body from a different physiological perspective. And, from our side, when you start looking at the body in terms of, energy and energy flow, thought, processes, consciousness, super consciousness. As soon as you begin to kind of sort of delve into that, you realize the vibrational aspect of the body. So the question that I always have is that if the body is kind of in vibration sort of naturally, then why can't we find tools and technology to try to interface with that body on a kind of sort of vibrational level? As an example, you talk to someone, they ask you, how are you? How's your vibe? How are you feeling? They're asking you to express themselves, or they're asking you to express yourself. And, as you're talking, as you're communicating, depending on your voice, depending on your tone, et cetera, you are revealing, certain pieces of information about yourself. You're revealing frequencies. Your voice, it's a form of frequency. And, there's so much about our body that emits frequency. You talk about, holistic healthcare practitioners. You've heard things like auras, things like chakras, things like Reiki, things like, long distance healing. A lot of those traditional modalities can be considered, esoteric, but the reality is they've been around for thousands and thousands of years. And at the end of the day, if you're using that type of technology and you're able to shift or to adjust somebody's energetic field without any side effects, at the end of the day, you've kind of got to look at that and decide, is this something which is worth exploring or not? And what breaks my heart is that because this type of technology, it cannot really be like, patented. Um, Typically, if you look at the big pharma medications, a lot of those medications actually come from herbs. But the natural herb is great. They're probably illegal, but you can take that natural herb, you can create a synthetic compound, and once you've created the synthetic compound, it's something that you can actually patent. So obviously that's the benefit, with being able to kind of research, traditional healing modalities, and then find a way to patent it, and then be able to sort of monetize it. For people like us that are still true to the core of our belief that we believe in vibrational, energy, and anyone can essentially heal themselves. It puts us at a bit of a disadvantage, should I say?
You know what came to mind when thinking of big pharma? There is one, I think it's a mineral, that is used for two different applications. One, I believe, is a medication that is used to help to, I'm not sure what the right term here is, to balance the psyche, if you will, emotionally, and so forth, to de-stress, I think. The other is used to power, the other modality is used to power electric cars. I'm speaking of lithium. Lithium is used in these new in the batteries for electric cars, but it's also a drug that people take. And I'm thinking, wait a minute, hold on a second. How are you able to use the same mineral for these two? Why would I want to ingest lithium if you're using it in batteries? I mean, that's just simple logic from a non-chemist, who I never did take chemistry, so I have no clue as to how they process it. But your point in terms of everything that we have created as human beings down through our history has come from the earth. It's what we do to it after we've extracted it that can make it beneficial or dangerous for human life, let alone just life in general on the planet. Whereas when you're talking about frequencies, and we've had people on this program, Jonathan Goldman, for example, just to name one in particular, we're always talking about vibration. We're talking about frequency. We're talking about tone. We're talking about how music, we've talked about the Mozart effect, for example, can have an effect on a person studying. The effect is not long lasting, but it doesn't need to be. You play it while you're doing your homework, you're studying, or your research, and it supposedly helps the brain to process information differently, so that you can do better on a test and those kinds of things. We listen to, I know you probably do this. I listen to certain music that comforts me, makes me feel good. Well, there's vibration, there's frequency there. There's other music that doesn't make me feel so good. I don't want any part of it. I don't want to even be near it, let alone listen to it. Um, Sometimes we will have certain devices in our homes, air conditioners, refrigerators, and so on and so forth, that have they'll put off a certain frequency and we can hear it. For some reason, nobody else in the room can hear it but us. But it's there, it's measurable if we have the right recording equipment. Are we talking about an app, which is what you have here, the Genius Insights app, that is available? Like, once again, the website is insighthealthapps.com, that you put in certain information into the app, which is usually on our phones, that is able to what? Analyze our current frequencies of mind, body, and emotions, and then generates a series of frequencies that help what? To balance them?
Short answer, yes. Long answer, yes, as well, actually.
Thank you for that.
I think, what's exciting about the technology that we've developed, and, obviously this is not just our technology. This is really it's a combination of a lot of different traditional healing modalities that we've been able to condense into essentially one mobile app. Part of the inspiration behind the development of this app was, if you look at A, we're dealing with alternative medicine, B, we're dealing with, vibrational medicine, C, we're trying to make the world a better place. We're trying to provide tools where someone can glean insights about their own health. And, I think all of us, we are health and wellness seekers, and, seeking health and wellness is not exactly cheap. You go to your chiropractor today, 2 days time, you want to go and get your aura cleansed. And then in 3 days time, you want to go to your naturopath. And then next week, when you want to go back to your chiropractor, it ends up becoming, sort of relatively expensive. And I think, one of the benefits with all these different modalities is that everyone is trying to get to the root of the problem, or they're trying to find your imbalances. Whether you're a chiropractor, whether you're a homeopath, is really immaterial. You go to a practitioner because you have an ailment, you have an imbalance, and, obviously they want to take the tools or something at their disposal to help understand exactly the imbalances that's going on in your body. So, I think that can be true for a doctor, except it's much easier just to rather give a little script that you can't read. Or you go to a holistic healthcare practitioner, they will want to understand, more about your health, your lifestyle choices, your supplements that you're taking, how's your energy field, et cetera, et cetera. So, a lot of these practitioners, they approach the body from all these different modalities. If you are a chiropractor, you've been trained from a chiropractic perspective. If you're a homeopath, you are going to come at the body from a homeopathic perspective. So, part of the inspiration that we had is, if you look at all these different modalities, they all involve, vibrational medicine. So the idea was, well, if the underlying fundamental modality behind all of these systems centers around vibrational medicine, wouldn't it be cool if we could find a way where we could incorporate all of these different modalities into one system or into one application where you could have access to homeopathy or acupuncture or toxicity or your emotional profile or your aura or your chakras? Because again, at a fundamental level, we've just been talking about frequencies, and within our industry, the belief system is that everything has its own resonant frequency, whether it's a herb or a virus or an emotion or even a chair. At a cellular level, at a quantum level, everything has its own unique vibration. So if we can find a way where we can identify what those vibrations are, if we can somehow present those vibrations to the body in some form or capacity, we should be able to glean a response.
Mhm.
And I think in many ways that was the inspiration behind this technology, was trying to find a mobile application that could um, satisfy many different modalities, where we could incorporate many different modalities into one mobile application that at the end of the day, we all want to feel better. We all want to get our body back into balance. The challenge is, you go and see a homeopath, and they're going to treat you from a homeopathic perspective. But you know what? Maybe on that day, you don't need a homeopathic remedy. Maybe on that day, you need a spinal adjustment, or maybe on that day you need a aura cleanse or whatever it is. And by being able to incorporate these different modalities, it does a scan. If we look at our voice contains a lot of rich data, the way we communicate, the way we talk, the way as a child I used to stutter. There's a lot of information that can be gleaned from your tone, from the way you communicate. If you're angry, if you're sad, if you're happy, people can pick up that immediately. So we started looking at the voice in terms of a form of analysis, because again, we're dealing with frequencies. So we started recording multiple voices, and then we had an existing database that comprised of certain pathogens, viruses, emotions, different components. And we began conducting research. We would take the voice and then we'd compare it against a database of different energetic signatures or different vibrations. And as we began to marry these together, we began to see a certain response. And when a response elicits a super high or a super low reaction, there's a reason why the body is reacting high or low to a certain item. And that's what we began to investigate. And, obviously with our technology, it sounds pretty complex, but I think it's actually pretty simple, where you basically talk into the mobile application, it captures your voice, it runs your voice through a mathematical algorithm, and then it compares your voice against a database of thousands and thousands of different energetic substances, looking for essentially deviations away from the norm. And in doing that, it incorporates all these different modalities into one. So now in the palm of your hands, you can be a chiropractor today, but you can be an acupuncturist tomorrow, and you can cleanse your aura on the following day.
Mm. Very interesting. Ryan Williams is my guest. Genius Insight is the app. Insight Healing, Insight Health Apps is the website. Insight Health Apps is the website. We encourage you to go there and check it out. I have it on my phone, and and I've processed my voice going there. And this is sort of right up my alley in that respect, because obviously I've been involved with audio and sound engineering for 45 years or so. But interested in it long before that as well. And it's just fascinating to me what can be learned from just from the voice. There are other similar modalities. I don't know that they're apps, where they will use a photograph, and you'll send the photograph in, and they'll process the photograph based upon that, because they say that the photograph contains your vibration, your frequencies, and so forth,
Okay,
which
yeah.
really adds credence to what the at least as far as the stories I used to hear of Native Americans who didn't want their photographs taken when photography was first starting, because they were concerned that this would steal their soul, their spirit. And I don't know, maybe On some level, there might be some truth to that. But obviously, someone had found out a way to do that. Well, you're now using sound, you're using vibration, you're using frequency from the human voice. Um, I'll share with you real quickly an experience that I had had. It was, I want to say it was an Easter Sunday, and we were all at my parents' house. And so for some reason in the back, in the front room where my sisters used to reside, the four of them, we were laying down on the bed, face up, and with the other person's eyes closed, they would scan over the body, and they would describe the sensations that they would feel. And when they scanned over my throat specifically, their hands got really warm. And that kind of speaks to me and spoke to me then and does now. Well, that's where the real energy is for me, is in my voice. And I'm sure that for other people, depending, for example, you might have someone scanning your body using that method, might have a sensation, different sensations over other parts of your body because you might use different organs, different parts for other reasons. I would think that maybe a chiropractor or maybe a Reiki healer, their hands might give off a great deal of heat because that's primarily where the energy is flowing through. I happen to be a Reiki master as well, and am very well aware of the role I play as a conduit of that energy or the frequencies. How long did it take for you to begin this process of making the connection between Rife's discoveries, if you will, and his frequency generator, and saying, "Hey, you know what? We have the technologies today. Let's create an app. Let's create an application on the phone and so forth." And I would take it that it works best on the phones as opposed to on a computer, per se. Am I correct, or is that my incorrect in that you could install it on your computer as well?
You can certainly install it on your computer if you've got an Apple, like a Apple Mac M1 processor. If you have the Android tablets, you certainly can. But really our focus, again, to actually answer your question indirectly, having been involved and been blessed to be involved in this industry for most of my adult life, my introduction into this world of biofeedback, or computerized biofeedback, probably started a good 20 to 25 years ago. And at that stage, this was when home computers were becoming a thing, where suddenly you could actually buy a computer for the home, and that was amazing. And then you've got the World Wide Web, and you still have the old little tone dial-ups, and so I'm kind of going back in those days, which I'm sort of really showing my age. But
I remember
um
too.
absolutely. And that was a kind of turning point for me, where I began to look at this computerized technology and I thought, oh my gosh, and probably my first soiree, my first kind of, foray into this industry was actually in London, in the United Kingdom. And I met a gentleman who had literally purchased one of the first computerized systems that had a piece of hardware that you can attach to the client, and you can send these signals or impulses, through the body, and then you can look at the body's response. In many ways, the older sort of traditional devices used a simple resistance measurement where you've got 2 points of contact. So in the one point, they would hold a brass electrode, and then the other hand, they would have a kind of a probe. And as they would touch specific points within the body, the signals or the energy would go through the body, and depending on how quick the energy would go through, or the frequencies would go through, it would show the resistance. That resistance would help you glean information. So I'm going back, kind of 20 or 25 years ago, and I started looking at that and was absolutely fascinated. And that's really been my jam for the last, sort of 20 or 25 years, which has been absolutely wonderful. But as kind of things progressed, we started, cell phones came out, and the Android phone came out, and we loved that phone. And then the iPhone came out, and that just sort of changed everything. And then from the iPhone, the App Store came out, and suddenly people were talking about mobile applications, and you can download an application for this and download an application for that. And it was still so very, very foreign to me. But, in all fairness, 2007, 2008 in the US, during the kind of, real estate downturn, it really prompted us to kind of reevaluate our business, not really through a kind of need in a way, because prior to that, we were involved in the sale and distribution of large medical technology that cost anywhere from 15 to $20,000. And people wouldn't think twice to put it on a credit card. Then comes, 2007, 2008 with the real estate downturn. And in many ways, it prompted us to reevaluate our business, to decide what's important to us, and to obviously figure out a newer, better way to be able to, continue providing a service. And at that stage, I was an ordained minister, and I went to a minister's meeting, and under a guided meditation, I literally had a brain download dump, and that's the only way I can describe it. I got home and I took 4 or 5 pieces of A4 pieces of paper, and I began to sketch what was the first mobile application 10, 11, 12, 13 years ago. And they were on A4 pieces of paper, and I'll never forget this day. It's like, we did this meditation, everything was great. And I came home, I thought, oh my God, oh my God, oh my God. And I got a piece of paper and I drew these first 4 or 5 things and I said, great, what now? And I had absolutely no idea. Like suddenly I had this visualization where I could take a 15 or $20,000 product that I'd been involved with and condense it into a mobile application. And, that's an easy statement. 15, 16 years ago, absolutely easy statement. But the reality is there was no blueprint to follow. No one had ever done anything like that before. So, through a process of sort of trial and error and really, if I can be real candid, just sort of, kind of letting go and sort of letting God in a way, and just allowing the process to unfold naturally, because there's so much stuff I didn't know. It took us about 8 or 9 months to build our first mobile app. I actually wrote a blog about this. At the end of the period of time when we finished the development, when we released our first app, I had $20 to my name. And I kid you not, I had a dream. It's like I had a dream and I had $20 to my name. And I thought, oh my gosh. But throughout that whole kind of 8 or 9 month period, what was so wonderful is each time I'd get to a sort of stumbling block, I didn't know what to do, someone or something would come into my life that would help me solve that solution. And then I would move to the next level and the next level. And it was such a beautiful process, just to kind of see this mobile application go from a conceptual idea to, from 3 or 4 A4 pieces of paper to suddenly me finding a group of software developers that can actually build it and build it according to what I wanted. And then they, exceeded my expectations and did things that I didn't even expect. And, 8, 9 months later, myself and my wife were up at 4 or 5 o'clock in the morning, putting the finishing touches to a video and just, you know, going by a wing and a prayer.
Hmm. Well, I tell you, that's a lot of times what happens is we take a leap of faith, as it were. I know that I've done that on a couple occasions, and I have also had to trust my intuition. It's like I've had experiences where I'll get this impression in regards to the situation that I'm in, that I'm dealing with. And I go, no, 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 that's totally opposite of my plan. And it persists and persists and persists. Now, it is still always my choice, but the prompting continues, and I finally acquiesced. Okay, all right. So I did it. And a few days later, I was really glad that I followed the promptings, because if I hadn't, things would have been much different, not necessarily in a good way in that respect. So it seems to me like you were doing the same kind of thing, just saying, you know what, I got to throw up my hands and surrender and say, okay, what next? And what's frustrating for us, I'm sure you as well as I, is the message that we'll get. Okay, time to wait. Now just sit there, be patient. It's like, what? No, 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 no. I need to move forward. That's sort of the process that I've gone through with my book choices. It's been in the works since my wife went through her cancer treatment, and she's been free of clear of it for now 23 years. Um, and the impetus for the book is what she went through. It's not her memoir per se. I'm not doing an autobiography or a biography per se, but it's having to do with making choices. And you've done that. You've made some choices in your life that have brought you right where you are now, talking with me about this incredible application that to me is right up there with a lot of some of the early devices we saw in the original series of Star Trek, let alone the Next Generation and so forth. The different devices that are no longer invasive, and that to me is incredible. It really is, because I mean, I don't know about you, but if you think about it from the standpoint of what are some of these, I mean, a lot of the phones that we use, they're made of a lot of the minerals and the crystals and all these different things that allow the energy to flow through them to do the things that they do. I still don't understand this concept of using my finger to move stuff on a screen. I still don't understand that. That is just bizarre. It really is. Let alone using a mouse on my PC. It's incredible how far we've come in what I perceive to be such a short time. I mean, my dad just passed away a year ago. He was 92, almost 92, and he was born in the 30s when nobody even thought of this stuff, other than maybe in science fiction. I mean, you think of Jules Verne's and his book, Flight to the Moon. And now we're saying, oh, let's go live on Mars. Is that really? And it's a distinct possibility. So what you have here with insighthealthapps.com and the Genius Insight app is quite remarkable. Now, you have more than one app. Is that correct? That is under this category.
We do. Again, the great thing is, once you kind of, get through a sort of breakthrough, you can figure out a solution. It opens up Pandora's box. So, once we discovered the concept of finding a way where we could generate, specific sound waves and specific frequencies, and then other ways that we could actually analyze the voice, suddenly you've got a really good foundation. So then we took that foundation and said, well, what if we improve people's relationships? So then we built the relationship harmonizer, where a couple or any couple can they basically both speak into the app. Then it analyzes both of their voice, and then it looks for compatibilities and different homeopathic remedies and different Bach essential oils specific to nurture that relationship. Then we got a bit creative with water, and we figured, well, maybe we could use LEDs or kaleidoscopic fractal animations and change the structure of water. So then we started, playing around with that. And then we developed a water harmonizer app that enables us to basically restructure water using light and, solfeggio frequencies. So it's kind of evolved and evolved and evolved. And, where we are today, if someone had, said to me in 5 or 6 years' time, where we're going to be, I would have honestly absolutely no idea. Because, and I still, if someone says to me now, where would you guys be tomorrow? Well, I know I'll be tomorrow. I'll still be in South Africa, but in terms of where will the technology be, I have absolutely no idea. But we've got such a large database of practitioners and users that use our technology on a daily basis. We always get feedback, and that kind of what sort of drives the research and development behind the technology. But just to kind of talk to this industry as a whole. To me, what is exciting is that there's a lot of different technologies out there, just like ours. Very few are mobile application based, but there's a lot of different bioresonant technologies that have the ability to change the physiology of the human non-invasively and with no side effects by using sound frequencies or electromagnetic frequencies or pulsed electromagnetic frequencies. And I think, there's a place for each and every one of these technologies. And I think what gives me encouragement and what I'm excited about is there's no side effects. It's not as if you go for a treatment with a pulsed electromagnetic field, and you're going to come back and you're going to suffer nausea, bloating, and diarrhea, and 25,000 other symptoms. So, worst case scenario, you don't feel any better. Best case scenario, you actually can sort of alter your physiology. But specifically, when you look at our technology, what excites me in terms of what we've done is we have a very custom tailored approach. And what I mean by that is by being able to look at your voice and analyze your voice. When we create a playlist of different frequencies, that playlist is based upon your own individual unique needs based upon your voice. So a lot of the technology out there, going back to the Rife technology back in the 1940s, it was very simple. You would have to push a button, and each button could indicate a certain virus or a certain pathogen. But the reality is, how do you know whether you even have that specific virus or that specific pathogen? Because there was no sort of biofeedback mechanism, there was no analysis mechanism. So then you look at our technology by being able to look at the voice and break the voice down into the dominant voice formats. We can then create a custom playlist of frequencies, and those custom playlists of frequencies will obviously be much more beneficial to you as an individual because it's based upon your needs of that day, versus, oh, I've got a digestive issue, let me push button number 2. The
Mhm.
reason why you've got a digestive issue could be completely different to why I've got a digestive issue. We don't know.
Right.
But when you start talking into a mobile application and it starts looking at your voice, it starts looking at your waveform patterns, then it can begin to create something customized based upon your unique features. You look at voice analysis. I mean, right now there is millions and millions of dollars that is going into the voice biomarker research. There's a lot of research going on right now. So, back in the COVID days, they did research with voice. I think they got about an 84% accuracy rate with COVID detection just through your voice. And at
Wow.
the moment now, there are 8 or 9 active studies going on, ranging from Parkinson's to Alzheimer's to asthma to COPD to brain activity. And all of these are actually centered around the voice. Still a very new fringe, a very new fringe, arena of investigation. But those people that are actively researching voice really believe that voice could essentially become the next form of blood analysis. And to me, that's really encouraging because now instead of having to go to a doctor or get your blood done, it opens up, telemedicine capabilities. It opens up, remote healing capabilities where people can be in the middle of nowhere. They can get an instant scan. And then obviously, once you've got a scan, you can then have a look at creating a custom playlist of frequencies specific, to you as well. So to go back to my stuttering, I was able to be able to get over my stuttering at a very late in my final year of school, actually. And the the way I was able to get over it was being forced up onto a stage and talk to an entire school of pupils and teachers. And really, what that taught me was, once you get to the bottom of the barrel or you kind of face your fears, there's only one way, and that's essentially forward. So for me, voice has been a real integral part of my life. And by being able to analyze your voice, it kind of opens up Pandora's box where we can do an analysis anywhere in the world.
How often I mean, I have the app. How frequently, how frequently is it recommended that you uh, redo the voice in term because we're obviously always changing and our conditions change. So I would think that one voice sample today isn't necessarily going to reflect my conditions tomorrow, next week, or next month.
Absolutely. That's a great question, actually. So, typically in terms of the actual analysis, we suggest an analysis once every kind of 3 days. But in terms of the actual balancing, you can provide balancing each day, all day, every day. Absolutely no problem. But if you actually want to run another analysis, typically what we advocate is to wait a day or two. You don't listen to any frequencies because, it's just like listening to music, but obviously these frequencies are much more specific and much more targeted. But by listening to these frequencies, it does change your body. So if you want to run another analysis, you want to wait about 2 or 3 days to kind of wait for your vibration to essentially settle. And then
Mhm.
you can actually run the frequencies on a sort of daily basis. A lot of practitioners, they're busy driving and we have different harness components. They're busy driving and they're busy put their harness on. Absolutely no problem. They're busy driving. And, as I said, part of my kind of stuttering thing, had I known then what I did now, I could have pulled out my app, put my harness on, gone to the emotional program, done some emotional work, done some stuttering work, and off you go. Is it going to provide a 100% solution? Absolutely not. But is it going to help? Absolutely. And that's, really what we're looking for. We're just trying to help kind of push and sort of stimulate the body just to kind of get the body just over that edge so the body can kind of stimulate its own innate healing, energy, because that's a big thing with this technology. Is this technology, it's designed to work with the body. It doesn't really work against the body. So because we're dealing with, vibrational medicine or, subtle based frequencies, when we're sending impulses into the body, it's not that you are trying to override the body's defense system and saying, oh, you got cancer, we're going to attack cancer or whatever it is. It's like, no, minute, subtle impulses into the body to remind the body what an unhealthy frequency is like. Once the body can recognize what that unhealthy frequency is like, it stimulates its own immune system. The body has its own natural ability to heal itself. And that's all we're doing. We just
Mm.
want to stimulate. We want to remind the body, hey, this is a healthy frequency. Let's make more of that. Let's magnify that. This is an unhealthy frequency. Let's get rid of this bugger.
Mm. Interesting. We're talking with Ryan Williams of the Genius Insight. InsightHealthApps.com is the website. We encourage you to go there. We will be linked to that website. I'm Richard Dugan, and you are listening to Tell Me Your Story. Royal Raymond Rife is sort of the impetus for our conversation here on Tell Me Your Story with Ryan Williams. And I have been fascinated by this whole aspect, especially when it comes to sound. Though my realm of expertise, if you will, I say that very lightly because I still have a lot to learn, is in what I like to call archival work. That meaning someone brings me a 78 RPM piece of vinyl or a reel to reel or a cassette, and they want to transfer it to the computer so they can listen to it. As I like to say, they can listen to it again for the first time. Um, and getting those vibrations, if you will, those frequencies from the old format, the old medium to the new medium, which is digital. um, and yes, unfortunately there is a certain amount lost in translation because you can't grab everything because we don't really have a lot of the equipment. For example, if you were working with a wire recorder or a wax recorder, I don't know too many of them that are around, the players around today. Cassette decks are still around, turntables. I have one that will play 78s, but the needles are a little different. So you don't have exactly the same frequencies that you had back when it was created. But when you're talking about this technology that we're dealing with, you're actually, when someone speaks into their phone, their device, to give the sample, you've got the current the current device that's playing the current frequencies that are going to give you a good reading as to, okay, what frequencies do we need to generate to help to put the body back into balance. And I like what you said about how the application works with the body. One of the conclusions I've come to, because we've mentioned big pharma a couple of times, is that we already have the ultimate pharmacy built in. But the question is, are we giving that pharmacy the necessary elements to create the pharmaceuticals that our body needs when it needs them? So I want to talk a little bit before we wrap things up here about what we are what we're taking in, not just in terms of food and drink, but sometimes the people that we associate with, the places that we where we live, and sometimes even like the work that we do. Finding our life's purpose is a big focal point here on the program. Can you talk a little bit about that in terms of, again, only you can only make suggestions to people. In terms of, let's say they download the Genius Insight app and they fire it up and they go through the trial, they do the voice test, it processes it, gives them the frequencies and so forth. And yet they're still eating the junk, drinking the bad stuff. They're living in an area that doesn't really foster and facilitate good health and well-being. They associate with people that are really negative and are not really um, maybe not supportive, but at least they're not tearing them down. You get where I'm going with this? It's like you can go to the doctor and you can do all of these different things, but if you're living in a quagmire, you're not really doing yourself any good.
You know, it's actually kind of interesting. I've been going, in fact, as of a couple of days ago, I went to a kinesiologist here locally. I've been having kind of lower hip issues from a lot of the spinning that I do. And I kid you not, this gentleman is a 6'4" giant, and he's got hands probably the size of my flipping head. And um, during this half hour, I'll say manipulation, because I have never been massaged like that. It was absolutely wonderful and everything else. But he was kind of laughing because, I was talking to him about my journey in terms of, trying to release some of my hip, reflex, the stress and everything else. And he said, it's so funny because people come to him and then he gives them exercises to do at home. And they come back next week and he says, so did you do the exercise? No, I just rather come to you. And it's just like a prime example, it's we want to go home, we want to live in a toxic environment, we want to eat bad food, we don't want to look after our body, we don't want to exercise, we don't want to have good nutrition, but then we just rather go to the doctor and try to look for this magic pill. We put on weight. You put on 5 pounds a year, 10 years time, you got 50 pounds that you put on. It's just a gradual thing over time. And ultimately, what we do is that we are so happy to give our power away to the doctor. We go to the doctor, give me that quick pill, give me that quick fix. Okay, you got too much weight. Oh, take Ozempic quickly. Oh, great. It's people are looking for these kind of short-term solutions, and they're not looking at the toxicity, and they're not looking at their lifestyle around them. And it's the same as our technology. People buy our technology and they use it, and then they call us in a month's time and, oh, it's not working. I said, well, what do you mean? They said, well, I'm doing everything, but it's not working for me. I said, well, let's talk about your lifestyle changes. And nothing has changed.
Mm-hmm.
Everything else is the same, but they want to use our technology for 10 or 15 minutes a day and think they're going to get this magic bullet. And in 10 or 15 minutes a day, you're going to play some frequencies and suddenly you're going to be healed forever. No, it doesn't work like that. This type of technology, it's designed to help educate you. It's designed to help stimulate you. It's designed to help kind of put you on the right path. But if somebody puts you on the right path and then you want to say, I'd rather go back to McDonald's, I'd
Mm-hmm.
rather go back to the doctor, I'd rather go back to my, to my medication. It's so much easier to go back to your place of kind of comfort, instead of actually trying to get out of your comfort zone. And this is what this technology does. And the thing I really like about the Genius is that, the high-end sort of visual displays, it shows information like real time, sort of black and white. There's an issue with your digestion or whatever it is. And as soon as you look at that, it kind of helps to stimulate your own visual healing capabilities. So suddenly, instead of me, if I was your practitioner and, oh, Richard, I think there's a problem with your digestion. Well, how do you know? I mean, I don't know. But hey, let's have a look at this technology. Look here, your technology is, digestion is showing signs of an imbalance. Let's go ahead and provide some balancing frequencies. But now with this, let's look at your lifestyle. Are you taking supplements? What is your diet like? Et cetera, et cetera. So the whole idea behind this is to look at the body from a sort of holistic perspective. We want to look at it from the mind, the body, and the biofield. So again, in terms of our technology, we've got 50, 60, 70, 80 different modules, all centered around vibrational health, vibrational medicine, energy healing, etc. And by being able to combine these different modalities and, into one system, it's helping you get a sort of holistic view of what's going on with your actual physiology in terms of your mind and your body and your biofield.
When I first got into the into this business, this industry, early on, I was approached by this woman um, out of the Northwest. Her name, I believe, was Linda Mackey. One of the words that she used all the time in her recordings that we did, and she was very much involved in health and wellness and so forth, especially because she was allergic to a lot of stuff, and so forth. And the word that she used was homeostasis, obviously akin to homeopathy. And it took me a long time to kind of grok it, to kind of really assimilate it. But I kind of understand it now, and really, that's really what we're trying to accomplish is a certain level of homeostasis, of balanced health. But we can't do that if we maintain the current lifestyle that we're in. That's, in a manner of speaking, sort of gotten us, where we are and why we're,
Exactly where we're in the first place. Yeah.
yeah, where we were in the first place. So, and yet, it's a challenge for many of us to make some of these changes. Some of them are easy. Some of them are simple in terms of, shifting your diet. Matter of fact, I had an experience where I was to go to the store. I was to pick up some items for making a salad, pick up some spinach. Well, all they had at the store that I went to was in this bag. It was in a plastic bag. And when I got home, I was told, no, we're not going to eat that. And you should know better. And it's like, well, it wasn't a question of knowing better. It was a question of that's what was requested, so that's what they had, so that's what I bought. Fortunately, we had some good quality iceberg lettuce in the fridge, so we made the salad with that. And I gave the spinach to our chickens. I personally feel they can process it and so forth, and that'll be fine, and it's not going to hurt us as far as having it in the eggs that we eat. But then again, I don't know. And I guess that's one of the challenges that we all face is that, I mean, I got off of sodas. Now I still have one rarely, okay, because I've switched over to another product that doesn't have the sugar in it. And I had just started a few months into switching from the sodas to this other product. And they said, well, yeah, but it's in a plastic bottle. I said, would you stop it? Hey, look, I just made the shift over to this. Okay. I'll work on the whole plastics issue down the road. That's, I got one step at a time, but at least
Absolutely.
I'm making some progress. So I think that's another thing that we need to do is give ourselves credit for the little changes that we do make. Uh, you know, Whether it's with the app or whatever, we don't drink milk anymore. And only
Hmm.
because we found some alternatives that taste just as good. They taste just
Hmm.
as good. And yet it's like there isn't anything that's out there on the food shelves. I don't care if you go to Whole Foods or Sprouts or Safeway or wherever it is. It's like somebody's going to complain about it. I'm sure you're aware of this back in the 70s and 80s. One day coffee is just fine, and the next day coffee is cancer causing, and then the next day it's okay, and then the next day it's bad for you. And it's like, what are we supposed to do? And I think that's where
But yeah.
this whole thing of kinesiology. I learned this back in the 80s. Muscle testing, as it was called, and your body knows. So when you're going through the grocery store, muscle test it. It's not that
Hmm.
hard. Your body will tell you whether or not you should eat that or not. And yeah, you're going to find a lot of junk. That's why, what is it that they say when you go into the grocery store? Do not shop in the middle. Always shop from the ends. I mean, as a general practice, I think that's good advice. In general, uh,
Hmm.
I don't know if organic is necessarily all that they claim it because you can slap a label on anything, right? So that's where muscle testing, I think, comes in. And I need to
You
do
know,
more of
I,
that myself.
I kind of agree with you, but I think, the flip side is as well that if you start going down the rabbit hole, you kind of never come out. And to me, is to take the small ones where you can. As an example, you've cut out soda. That's a win.
Yeah.
I don't care what else. It is a win, you know? But instead of taking that win, it's like, oh, well, this isn't good enough. It's like, do me a favor. You have too much carrots. Oh my gosh, the carrots are bad for you. You know what? I was eating chocolate cake beforehand. Let me have the win that I'm eating. Let me rather get sick from eating too much carrots kind of thing. And I think, this is equally where we as a kind of human consciousness, we kind of so hard on ourselves. We kind of achieve one thing and we forget to actually just stop and give yourself a pat on the back and have a bit of gratitude and say, you know what, this is good. I've been through a major kind of health transformation over the last year as well. And, for me, it's been so encouraging, but equally as much as what it's been encouraging, I've also had people saying to me, yes, but you're not doing this. Yes, but, and it's like, I've just lost 43 pounds. I'm sorry. I don't care about the buts. Like whatever I'm doing is working. It's the same as the technology that we have. Like when you run a balancing session, it'll give you a percent rectification, which is it's a statistical probability based upon three or four different factors, right? But that will give you a percent rectification. Now, that percent rectification is anywhere from, I mean, typically it's like a low percent from, let's say, 10 to kind of 20 or sort of 30%. If you do it longer and harder, whatever it is, you can get the percent, rectification higher. But to me, there's two things to look at. The body is lazy. The body will always go back to its original state of rest. So if you start playing frequencies in the body to try to force or override the body to getting a very high percent rectification in a very short period of time, the body's going to be lazy. It's going to go back to its original state of rest.
Mm-hmm.
That's the first thing. And the second thing is just like climbing a mountain. If you're going to climb Mount Everest, you don't climb Mount Everest in a day. You climb for however many hundreds of feet, you stop, you get acclimatized, you get adjusted, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then you go to the next step. You get adjusted, and then you go to the next step. It's just like your health. Okay, great. You've cut out soda's butt. Okay, that butt will be next year. Next year, we work on that butt. And then you change and you change and you change. And just like this technology, it's not a magic bullet that's going to solve your problems in one process. But by using it on a regular basis, over a period of time, you begin to get acclimatized to it. You begin to see the small wins. Those small wins get reinforced within your body, stimulates your whole, visual healing capabilities. You kind of get grounded, you get centered, you have a bit of gratitude, and then you move on to the next level.
I think it's very cool that we have the technology that we have today that you have created through your company and through insighthealthapps.com. We encourage people to go there. We'll be linked to that. We're talking with Ryan Williams, the creator of the Genius Insight app that is available, and hope you'll get a copy of it. We'll have the link on the website as well, on SoundCloud and YouTube as well. So hope you'll check that out as we continue here on Tell Me Your Story. I want to thank you so much, Ryan Williams of InsideHealthApps.com, for joining us here on the program. This has been fascinating. I always like talking about the issues of health because it's not just about your body, mind, and emotions. It's also about our spiritual growth, our spiritual progress. And I think that, again, taking those small wins that you talked about earlier, just taking the little ones and taking credit for that, and as you say, patting yourself on the back, can go a long way to help to elevate our consciousness, our awareness of who and what we are and where we are. And little by little, I still have hope for the future for mankind. I'm not a pessimist. I'm not one who believes in Armageddon and the apocalypse and all of that stuff. I honestly do believe that we have a long way to go, and we've also come a long way, and we need to give ourselves credit for that. And I thank you for helping us to process that and to put that into proper perspective. Thank you so much for being with us.
Richard, thank you so much for the invitation. Lovely to chat and connect with you. Thank you.
Well, I have three final questions for you that I ask all of my guests. But before I do, I want to thank you for listening to and watching Tell Me Your Story. New paradigms for a new world where we're giving you choices and knowledge of those choices to help make your dreams come true. We are here on Sundays at 7 a.m. and 7 p.m., Monday mornings at 1 a.m., Wednesdays at 9 a.m. for a special edition of Tell Me Your Story. And we're here Monday through Friday from 8 to 9 a.m. And we stream live at those times at richarddugan.com. Our podcasts are on SoundCloud, iTunes, TuneIn Radio, Spotify, Stitcher, Player FM, Blueberry, iHeartRadio. We're on YouTube where you can watch these conversations. I hope that you will subscribe and click notifications so that when a new conversation is posted, you will know about it and you'll be able to tune in, listen in, and learn something, be inspired, educated, and get some insights into yourself, which is, from my perspective, what it's all about. Want to let you know, too, that Choices, the book Choices, 5 Steps for Life, is now available via Amazon in hardcover, paperback, and Kindle. We hope that you will go to Amazon and look that up. Choices by Richard Dugan, Reverend Dr. D. And we hope that you'll get a copy and read it and use it as well. We also ask if you can support the work that we are doing financially through PayPal. That's it's there for your security as well as ours. We'd be gratefully appreciative. We also ask you to take time to go within and listen to that still small voice. And that's part of kinesiology as well, is listening to that still small voice, listening to your body and what it wants and needs at any given point in time. And again, give yourself the credit that you deserve for the little victories that you've had along the way. With all of that, we now go to our final 3 questions for a very special guest. And to our guest, we ask of the first question, who is Ryan Williams?
Father, friend, family lover, happy person.
What is it that gets you up in the morning?
Desire to change the world one frequency at a time.
And finally, what was your best day?
Realizing my dream.
Well, Ryan, I thank you again for joining us here on the program, all the way from South Africa. I think that's really cool. Our technology has allowed us to communicate in this fashion, in this way. I mean, I still remember when I first got into this business, it was a long distance phone call of $25, $30, $40 for the length of time we've been on, maybe more. And now it's I pay the same price for Zoom that most people do, and I can call anybody anywhere in the world who has Zoom. And so it's great to have connected with you, and I look forward to talking with you when you come back to the States too.
Richard, thank you very much for your time. Appreciate it.
And I thank you folks for listening to and watching Tell Me Your Story, New Paradigms for a New World, where we are giving you choices and knowledge of those choices to help make your dreams come true. And until our next broadcast, podcast, videocast, love Talal. Jeanette, I am still listening. Dad, continue to be happy because I am. Smokey, I will see you on the other side. And to my dear friend Zorro, aho, aho.